So it is time for the Royals Report, and today our focus is on politics. Little deviation there. A Scottish court has ruled that British Prime Minister Boris Johnson's move to suspend Parliament just ahead of the Brexit deadline is illegal.
The Court of Session judges said that Johnson had misled the Queen in advising her. BBC Royal correspondent Jonny Dymond is with us now from London. So, Johnny, how has the Queen been brought into Brexit again, and what's her role in all of this?
Well, it is one of the Queen's powers to suspend Parliament. We call it proroguing Parliament here, and it's a very ancient power stretching back hundreds of years. Gradually, that power has essentially been handed over to the Prime Minister. She acts on the advice of the Prime Minister. Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, went to her and said, I want you to prorogue Parliament because we've got the Queen's speech coming up. That's the new set of legislation that the Prime Minister wants to bring forward to Parliament. She said, fine, and then prorogued or suspended Parliament for 5 weeks. But the Scottish court has said, look, it's pretty clear that the reasons that Boris Johnson gave to the Queen were not the real reasons at all. So this is a very big political issue. Parliament only stopped sitting about, 36 hours ago. Very, very rowdy scenes inside the House of Commons as opposition MPs protested against this 5-week suspension right in the middle of this incredibly fraught political time. And suddenly the Queen, who is supposed to be above all of these things, who is supposed to be really a figurehead in the Constitution, has been sucked into one of the greatest political crises of Britain's recent history.
So many people actually don't realize that courts can actually reverse the Queen's assent. What does that mean when they say that they believe that she was misled?
Well, reversing the Queen's assent is quite something. I mean, this was done with what's called an order in council. That's not like an act of Parliament. That is a decision of the Queen that's just simply laid out. And this is really, I think, the first time an order in council has been contradicted in this way. I should say, it's going to go to the UK Supreme Court, so we're not quite finished with the legal proceedings yet. As to misleading, well, again, the understanding is that the advice the Prime Minister gives his sovereign, gives the Queen, is the truth. And the court says that's simply not the case this time. We are in absolutely unprecedented territory.
So, Johnny, as you know, Prince Harry is taking part in an annual charity event that honors the victims of the September 11th attacks. Tell us what he did to raise thousands.
Well, he closed a trade at a big City of London brokerage called BGC. And he closed a more than $1 billion gilts trade. It's part of a thing they do every year, and they've raised $159 million over the years that they've been doing it. It's in memory of the 658 employees of Cantor Fitzgerald and the 61 employees of Eurobrokers who died on that terrible day in 2001. And it attracts British celebrities, it attracts royalty. Prince William and Prince Harry have done it as a double act before. Prince Charles has been there. And today Prince Harry was on the phones, working the phones, closing that big trade, I suspect with a little bit of help from the professionals, and raising money for the relatives of those who died in the attacks and a host of other charitable causes as well.
Meanwhile, Prince William perhaps will be taking to the phones as well. He's taking his volunteer crisis service called Shout into his own hands. He says that he really wants to learn how to answer the messages from those in need. Is he going to become like a crisis counselor, or what's the deal here?
I mean, you think he might be a little bit busier than that, being, a father of 3 and second in line to the throne. He said, I'd love to be a counsellor, I'd like to do some, maybe I could just do an hour or so on my laptop now and then. I had a quiet word with the palace, who, I don't think they poured cold water on it, but they didn't suggest he'd be signing up for training anytime soon. He's clearly very enthusiastic about this. It's part of both Prince William and Prince Harry's emphasis on mental health and making sure there's assistance for people with mental health problems. When he was asked how interested he was, he said, well, I'd love to do it myself. I won't hold my breath for it. But again, it's a sign of his enthusiasm for this topic.
Really all right, Jonny Dymond, thank you very much. This was a departure. Normally we're talking about, I don't know, tennis matches or whatever.
Or going to first day of school.
We really learned something about the monarchy
Different
today.
Days.
Yes. Thank you, Johnny.
Thank you.
Glad, Emery.